For almost 2,000 years, Christians have been told the same story. Jesus rose from the dead, appeared to his followers, and ascended to heaven. End of story. But what if that was not the end at all? Hidden away in the mountains of Ethiopia lies a Bible so ancient and so massive that it contains secrets the Western Church has never wanted you to see. What did Jesus really say during those mysterious 40 days after his resurrection, before he ascended to heaven? The answers have been preserved here, in these mountains, for nearly 2 millennia, and they will shake everything you thought you knew. Most people believe the Bible is one book, a closed, finished story. In reality, the version familiar to most of the world is missing 15 books. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church holds a canon of 81 books, not 66. That means entire Gospels, visions, and prophecies have been quietly preserved in Ethiopia for centuries, hidden from the eyes of the Western Church. This extraordinary collection is written and chanted in Ge'ez, a language so ancient it has not been spoken on the street for 1,000 years. The priests and monks who guard these texts consider them a living inheritance passed down in the highland monasteries and guarded through war, famine, and empire. The scale of this difference is hard to overstate. The Ethiopian canon includes not just the familiar Old and New Testaments, but also books like 1 Enoch, Jubilees, the Apocalypse of Peter, and the Book of the Covenant, texts that vanished from Western Bibles after the 4th century. In Ethiopia, these writings are not apocrypha or lost gospels. They are scripture, read aloud in ancient churches carved from solid rock and used in daily worship. Christianity reached Ethiopia in the early 300s, carried by Syrian missionaries, Frumentius and Aedesius, who taught the faith to King Ezana of Aksum. They brought with them a vast library of sacred writings. Isolated from Roman power and untouched by the councils that trimmed the Western canon, Ethiopia became a sanctuary for these books. Here the full story survived, copied by hand in the scriptoria of Debre Damo and Lake Tana, sheltered in mountain monasteries where outsiders could not reach. The question remains, what secrets did these hidden books keep? And what did Jesus truly say after his resurrection in those 40 days the rest of the world has never fully heard? In the 4th century, a series of decisions behind closed doors transformed the Christian story that most of the world would inherit. In 367 CE, Athanasius, Bishop of Alexandria, issued a letter listing exactly which books should be read as sacred and which should be cast aside. His festal letter named 27 New Testament books, the same set now found in nearly every Western Bible. Anything outside this list, Athanasius called dangerous, warning that even the faithful could be led astray by writings with familiar names. A generation later, 2 African councils, Hippo in 393 and Carthage in 397, made Athanasius's list law for the Latin-speaking church. Their canons, copied and circulated across the empire, ordered that only these books be read in every church. The message was clear. The age of open debate about scripture was over. The boundaries had been drawn. Soon after, Jerome, tasked by Pope Damasus to produce a single Latin Bible, followed the same blueprint. In his prefaces and letters, Jerome insisted that only the books recognized by Athanasius and the African councils could be trusted. He warned that unity depended on everyone reading the same text in the same order, with no room for local traditions or mystical writings. 3 motives drove this narrowing. First, political control. A single, fixed canon made it easier to enforce doctrine across a vast and fractious empire. Second, suspicion of mysticism, visions, angels, and secret revelations like those found in Enoch or the Apocalypse of Peter were seen as threats to order. Third, the need to keep spiritual authority in the hands of the institutional church, not in the hearts of ordinary believers. By the 9th century, the Western Bible had become almost entirely uniform, a closed book with forbidden texts left to gather dust or disappear. In Ethiopia, however, the story was never trimmed to fit. High in the Ethiopian highlands, ancient Ge'ez manuscripts preserve words Western churches never heard. The Mashafi Kadan, or Book of the Covenant, claims to record Jesus' voice during the 40 days after his resurrection, a voice that warns more than it comforts. 3 sayings, copied and recited for centuries, form the core of this hidden record. First, they will raise golden temples and shout my name, yet their hearts will be far from me. The true temple is the human soul. Here, Jesus looks past outward faith, naming the danger of worship that is all display, while the spirit inside withers. Second, a death walks among the living. A man appears alive while his spirit is dead. This is not about physical death, but a deeper loss, a world full of people moving and speaking, yet empty inside. Third, my spirit will rise again in the broken places where the proud cannot see, moving where organized religion cannot reach. The message is hope and rebuke. According to Ethiopian tradition, the spirit does not dwell in power or pride, but among the overlooked in open and wounded hearts. These warnings survived because Ethiopia guarded them, refusing to let them disappear. In the Ethiopian tradition, the question of what it means to be truly alive is not answered by breath or movement, but by the state of the spirit within. The Book of the Covenant, preserved in Ge'ez and read aloud in the flickering light of mountain monasteries, offers a vision rarely found in Western Christianity. Here, the body is described as clothing, a temporary garment that wears thin and fades, while the soul beneath is meant to endure. Monastic teachers warn that a person can walk, speak, and even pray, yet be dead inside, their spirit hollowed by pride or distraction. This is the walking death Jesus is said to have described, a world where people appear alive but are empty, their true self hidden or forgotten. The teachings go further. They insist that outward displays, golden temples, public acts of worship, are nothing if the inner temple, the soul, is neglected. In these texts, Jesus warns that his spirit will rise again in the broken places where the proud cannot see, moving where organized religion cannot reach. The path to life is not through ritual or status, but through humility and the willingness to be broken open. The proud, armored in certainty, remain blind to this movement. The spirit, according to these writings, finds its home among the wounded, the overlooked, those whose hearts are open because they have nothing left to defend. This radical focus on the inner life stands in stark contrast to the external markers of faith that dominated later church traditions. In Ethiopia's preserved words, the crisis is not just in the world, but in the heart of each believer, a challenge that echoes long after the last page is turned. Peter stands at the summit of a mountain, breathless, as the risen Christ draws back the veil between worlds. In the Ethiopic apocalypse of Peter, this is not a gentle vision. It is a spectacle of judgment, unsoftened by allegory. The air thickens with the cries of the condemned. A lake of fire churns below, its flames licking the feet of those who once used religion for gain. Their agony is described in language so vivid that later poets, Dante among them, would seem restrained by comparison. Some souls are forced to climb a tree whose branches are thorns, and each step tears their flesh, and their blood mingles with the earth. In another chamber, the damned stand on a platform of burning iron, struck by angels wielding whips made of smoke and ash. A river of tears pours over their heads, so caustic it strips away flesh, leaving only bone. These torments are not mere warnings, they are a moral anatomy lesson, each punishment tailored to the soul's corruption. Yet Peter is not just a witness to horror. He has shown the other side, a city of light, its walls built from precious stones, the saved walking barefoot on golden streets, faces shining like suns. The vision is relentless, forcing a confrontation with the consequences of empty faith and hidden cruelty. In the Ethiopian text, the mountain is both a place of revelation and a mirror held up to the soul. The Western canon would later tame such imagery, but here the stakes are laid bare. What is done in the name of God will be answered for, not in secret, but in the open, where nothing can be hidden. Long before the councils of Rome trimmed the canon, Ethiopia's highlands became the last refuge of stories that trace back to the world before the flood. In the Book of Enoch, read as scripture in every Ethiopian church, the story begins with the Watchers, angels who descended to earth and broke the boundary between heaven and humankind. They taught forbidden knowledge, took human wives, and fathered the Nephilim, giants whose violence filled the earth. When the flood swept the world clean, the bodies of these giants perished, but their spirits lingered. In Ethiopian tradition, these restless spirits became the source of demons, the unseen forces blamed for suffering and temptation. While the Western canon left these origins in the shadows, Ethiopian monks copied and guarded the full account for centuries. In the scriptoria of Lalibela and Aksum, where manuscripts are still inked by hand, the story of the Watchers is not a myth, but a warning, one that links the chaos of the ancient world to the hidden dangers of the present. The Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's royal epic, goes further. It claims that the Ark of the Covenant itself was brought to Aksum, giving Ethiopia not just the books, but the very heart of the covenant. Monks in these mountain monasteries see themselves as stewards of these secrets, responsible for preserving the words and warnings that others tried to erase. Their commitment is more than tradition, it is a living trust, passed from generation to generation, holding the line between the ancient past and the uncertain future. Today, the Ethiopian canon's 81 books remain hidden in plain sight, preserved, not lost. As faith fractures and temples gleam, the words echo, "My spirit will move where religion cannot reach." The question lingers, what else waits, sealed by tradition, while the soul searches for what was never meant to be found?